Act 5, Scene 1 is the fight scene. Well known as the fight scene, and essentially Cassio and Roderigo fight, and then Roderigo dies at Iago's hand. So the start of the scene, Iago, remember this is all at night. Iago tells Roderigo to have thy good rapier burst. That's his sword. So he's basically ready to kill him. Now, Roderigo tells us as an audience, because Iago's gone off stage, I have no great devotion to the deed. He's not really convinced that this is a good idea, but he says he has given me satisfying reasons. So even though his heart's not really in it, he understands why he's doing it, and he thinks that it's a wise thing to do. Well done, Iago, for convincing Roderigo. So Iago aside to one side of the stage. Obviously, Roderigo can't hear him. He says, he gives us such a good insight here. This is a really good Iago quote. He says, whether he kills Cassio or Cassio kills him or they kill each other, either way, I gain. So he doesn't really care what the outcome of this fight is, as long as at least one of them dies. Now, if Roderigo lives, he will call me to a restitution large of gold and jewels that I bobbed from him as gifts to Desdemona. It must not be. So we learn here that actually, if Roderigo lives, he's going to realize that Iago took gold and jewels from him, stole them from him, and pretended that those gold and jewels, that he was going to give them to Desdemona. And actually, he hasn't given them to Desdemona. He's just kept them for himself. So all this time when Roderigo thinks he's been wooing Desdemona, he's not. He's just been handing his jewels over to Iago, and Iago's been pocketing them. So Iago's very concerned that actually, that must not be. So Roderigo can't live. If Cassio lives, this is why he wants Cassio to die, and this is a key theme. Cassio has a daily beauty in his life that makes me ugly. So Iago wishes to banish that which makes him insecure. Cassio's too beautiful. He's too kind a man. He's too gentlemanly. And bear in mind that he's actually really horrible about Bianca and is not the perfect man at all. But society sees him as that. And so this is, again, all about Iago's insecurities and how he feels about himself, and that evil can't cope with goodliness existing in the world, because it just makes evil feel bad about himself, that it's so corrupt. So metaphorically, there's a bigger message here. This idea of the good relationship between good and evil, and the evil is repulsed by goodness and wants to defeat it because it makes evil feel ugly. Okay, so he says here, and besides, the more may unfold me to him. In other words, Othello might tell Cassio what Iago's been saying, and then that means that Cassio's going to know that Iago's not to be trusted, and Cassio could also ruin Iago's reputation. So there's a sense here that this is a real tipping point for Iago. This is like this equivalent moment that Othello was in Act 3, where he could go either way. He's in much peril, and so no, he must die. So this is all about self-preservation. He doesn't really care about people's lives. He only cares about him coming out on top. And I don't know what I was going to say then, so I'm just going to pretend that I didn't say that. And okay, so in comes Cassio. They fight, and then your key stage direction is that Iago wounds Cassio in the leg and exits. Now, you might ask yourself why he doesn't properly kill Cassio. Is Iago just rubbish at fighting? Of course, it wouldn't be as dramatic, because Shakespeare needs Cassio alive at the end to be the order and the sense that everyone, he doesn't deserve to die, does he? Not that Desdemona does, but he needs to restore order at the end of the play. And some people do argue that Desdemona does deserve to die because she betrayed her father at the start of the play, and the marriage therefore should never have happened. Okay, so on the next page, Othello hears Cassio screaming because he's hurt his leg, and assumes that Iago has kept his word and has killed Cassio, and that gives Othello more impetus to go and kill Desdemona. He feels like he has to, because brave Iago, honest and just, has a noble sense of duty to thy friend's wrong. He feels like Iago has defended Othello's honor by killing Cassio. So he now definitely has to go and kill Desdemona. And the dramatic irony, of course, is that Cassio isn't dead, and therefore he doesn't need to feel this extra onus on himself that he needs to do the deed. So we now have Roderigo back and Gratiano, who is also in the last scene. So again, these are symbols of law and order from Venice. And well, sorry, Roderigo is. And in also comes Iago with a light. And there's that idea that the light is symbolic because Iago knows everything that's going on. He's the only person who could shed light on this situation. Of course, he chooses not to. Okay, so there's a lot of confusion here, and everyone's shouting and trying to work out who's who and where people are. And if you turn over to page 189, the darkness really aids Iago because no one can see each other or know what's going on, but Iago is holding the light. So in all of this confusion, Iago goes and stabs Roderigo and shouts to him, "Oh, murderous slave, oh, villain." And Roderigo's final line is to shout, "Oh, damned Iago," which is cursing him. He doesn't end up dying, and he is held to account at the end of the play, so you could say that the curse kind of works. And "oh, inhuman dog." And I think that really is one of the best quotations to describe Iago. He is inhuman because he's so evil and so violent, so cunning and so Machiavellian. But also he's the dog, he's the animal. And whereas Othello was a monster because he's a man of great stature, perhaps, Iago's just a dog. Just a dog. Plenty of them in the world. But maybe that's the problem. He has the letter, remember, at this point. Roderigo has a letter in his pocket. So Iago makes a mistake, really, by not searching Roderigo. But he just doesn't ever suspect that Roderigo would be that smart. So his last mistake that Iago does is to underestimate people. He underestimates Roderigo and he underestimates his wife. Of course, he kills both of them, but not before they can, get the revenge and make sure he's held accountable and held responsible. In comes Bianca, terribly upset. "Oh, my dear Cassio, my sweet Cassio, 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 Cassio." And there's Iago calling her a whore again. And Iago, goes to Cassio and says, do you know who did this to you? So he's checking to see what Cassio can remember. And Cassio basically says no. He's in a lot of pain and he has no idea. Of course, it was Iago who stabbed him in the leg, which is his actual injury. So again, he's just checking to make sure that he's okay, isn't he? And he's not going to be held accountable. Page 191. All about looking after Cassio, trying to make sure that he gets away and trying to work out who did it. And then they confirm that it's Roderigo. Iago says, "Did you know him?" And Gratiano says, "Yes, he did know him." And then Iago looks after Cassio and gets him a chair, and then they confirm that it is Roderigo who's done it. Okay, so because Iago here, the way he leads this conversation, he actually ensures that Roderigo is found and blamed. Now, obviously, they probably would have looked for him anyway, but the real mistake there, not checking his pockets, especially if they were going to go, he was going to make sure that they went and got the body. And one final thing from this page is we learn that Cassio does not remember Roderigo at all, even though he's the one he fought with in Act 2. So it kind of highlights how drunk Cassio was in that scene. He doesn't know him at all. He doesn't remember him. Okay. And Bianca again is trying to look after him and is fussing around. So Roderigo's body's removed. Obviously, they're going to go and find the letter, and Cassio is carried off. Now, Emilia comes in. Oh, sorry. There's this idea here as well that Iago tries to implicate Bianca just in case. Yeah. The way that Bianca is behaving, Iago tries to suggest that that's because she is not guiltless. Because, of course, Cassio was supping at Bianca's house, so there's maybe an indication there that Bianca could have set Cassio up, etc. So Iago says this is the fruit of whoring. So he writes an interpretation for the people listening to say, oh, actually, Cassio's dead because he slept with you. And Bianca really defends herself. She doesn't let Iago do that and put it on her hands. And of course, Bianca probably would be less believed in society because of her position. So she does realize she has to be defensive. She admits he had dinner at the house, but that's not why I'm shaking. I'm shaking because she loves him, doesn't she? She really dotes on him. Emilia's very rude to Bianca. She calls her a whore as well. She's very cold with her. Is she jealous? Does she just not respect her? Does she know her reputation and therefore, judges her? But very, very rude. Bianca defends herself again. I am not a whore. I am as honest as you that abused me. Emilia's not having that. Oh, fee upon thee, whatever, as if. Iago directs Emilia to run to the citadel and tell Othello and Desdemona what has happened. Questionable why he does that, because he is assuming, presumably, that Othello is going to kill Desdemona. So why send Emilia to interrupt them? And actually, sending Emilia to interrupt them does lead to Iago's downfall. So that's a significant decision that Iago makes that you need to make a note of, the consequences of that decision. Whether he potentially wanted her to interrupt Othello and Desdemona because he'd failed in killing Cassio, unclear. But yeah, certainly that's a decision that leads to Emilia being present, which leads to Emilia revealing what Iago did. And at the end here, we've got this lovely line of antithesis. So this is the night that either makes me or does me quite. So I'm either going to be made tonight, I'm going to be promoted and raised higher in society, or it's going to all fall apart and ruin me completely. And we've got great dramatic tension now going into the final scene of the play. Okay, thank you very much.